Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. Bicycle Retail Radio brings together retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders for honest discussions about the latest issues facing bicycle retailers. The podcast dives deep into the challenges and triumphs of the bicycle industry, providing an in-depth look at the person behind the profession. Aiming to deliver content that's both relatable and thought-provoking, offering real-world tips and insights to help you find success in the bicycle industry. There's a human side of the business, and the podcast aims to share stories, experiences, and strategies that you can apply in your own shop. Whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or a sense of community, you've come to the right place. The National Bicycle Dealer Association has a rich history of supporting retailers across the nation. Founded in 1946 with a mission to strengthen specialty bicycle retailers through education, through research, through communication, and through advocacy. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is proudly supported by our members and our membership. If you'd like to learn more about the benefits of joining, please visit nbda.com.
Specialty bicycle retailers are the heart of the cycling industry, and the National Bicycle Dealers Association exists to strengthen these businesses through education, research, communication, and advocacy. When we create thriving bicycle retailers, the industry and the cycling community follows. Memberships are available for individuals, retailers, and association partners committed to supporting the mission. Join today at nbda.com. Get ready to embrace the future of specialty bicycle retail. The NBDA Retailer Summit Central in Bentonville, Arkansas is your gateway to operational excellence, financial growth, and long-term success in an ever-evolving industry. From insightful panel discussions to hands-on workshops, you'll explore strategies for profitability, innovation, and embracing trends like e-mobility. In 2025, it's not just about selling bikes. It's about building a smarter business, engaging with your community, and setting the standard for the future of retail. Let's make it happen. Visit nbda.com to secure your spot today.
Hi, listeners. Welcome back to Bicycle Retail Radio. Thanks for being here. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA president. Today's episode, I sat down with Mike Carr of Intense. Intense Bicycles has been a long-standing history in the industry. We talked about the brand's past. We talked about their plans for the future. We talked about how they're navigating this challenging landscape. And we really dove into this exciting new IBD-focused initiative that they have going. It's going to change the landscape of retail partnerships. So I really enjoyed this. Mike's really real, really honest. I hope you enjoy it too. Mike, thanks for coming on the podcast. Great to have you here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the invite. I'm really excited to have this discussion.
Well, I mean, it's early March 2025, and I know things at Intense are, let's just say, intense. You've got this new IBD-focused initiative. You're changing the way we're doing business. And yeah, I had to have you on the podcast. By the time this airs, it'll be post the MBDA Retailer Summit in Vegas, where the industry is coming together. And you will have been joined on our main stage with Bill Schuman of QBP to talk more. And I just wanted to, before things get hectic, Mike, just kind of dip into this a little bit with you. So thank you. I know things are probably really busy right now, right?
Yeah, there's no shortage of things going on for all of us in the industry, right? It's an interesting time in the industry, and therefore we're all busy trying to figure out, what does this mean? What do we need to do? How do we thrive? And so, the timing of this is perfect, and I love it because it's such a great precursor to the Retail Summit, where we'll get to take an even deeper dive into some of these concepts.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, you're doing something totally unique, and you and I were just chatting briefly before we hit record here on air. But you mentioned there's a new way to buy bikes for riders, and there's a new way for retailers to be part of how riders are buying bikes, and it's really a new way of doing business. It's thinking outside the box, and yeah, kudos to you and your team for really thinking forward and taking things to a next level. We have to evolve.
I do know. Yeah, it's a paradigm shift. That's what we're trying to enable, both in terms of how the rider thinks about their bicycle purchase experience and how a dealer is thinking about running a healthy and profitable business. And we think the current climate that we're in today has exasperated any of the cracks in the system and challenges within the bike industry system that aren't producing the best experience for the rider and is really challenging for retailers to figure out how do we continue to thrive in the industry and where is our value. And maybe we used to firmly know where our value is, and in this current climate it's like, well, where is it and how do we define that and how do we go forward? So if we can play any part in solving those problems, we want to. And I think it's just very near and dear to the brand's heart to be innovative, and that's historically been on the product side, but we also want to be innovative on the business strategy side as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about we did a consumer research report just this past December. We surveyed 1,000 U.S. consumers and Canadian consumers, riders, asking them what they intend to purchase, where they intend to purchase, and just to get some of those preferences. The support for specialty bicycle retailers was overwhelming, and the reasons they cited were service, expertise, knowledge. And I really believe that the program that you've put in place here really supports those three things that retailers can do, helping a rider choose something customized to them that meet, like their dream bike, their vision. So there's so much I want to get into. Intent started in 1990s. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Mike?
1993. Yeah. Yep. Jeff Steber started the brand in Southern California in 1993.
And so let's just start with a little bit about you. You can tell I'm excited, right? You have a deep history. I did a little research on you. Deep history in bike racing. Started in like the 80s. I don't want to give anything away here, but what kind of led you to Intense? How did you get into the role that you're at now?
Yeah, great question. So I did start my journey in cycling in the 80s, which does date me, as does the gray in my beard, but that's okay. It is what it is. Um, I was on a junior road cycling team in Marietta, Georgia, when I was in high school. And at that time, cycling, especially for high school kids, wasn't part of the norm, particularly in the southeastern US, and wearing lycra and being out on the road was a pretty interesting experience to be part of. But it was incredible in terms of I started to gain this real appreciation for the bicycle and all of the nuance of bicycle racing and performance and competition and all of that. And so, yeah, that was a ton of fun. I'll give a call out. Free Flight Bicycles in Marietta, Georgia was the shop that supported this junior race team. And my very first bike ever came from that shop. My first bike ever was a Diamondback BMX bike. And then subsequently later, as I got into racing, my first road racing bike came from that same shop. So I have a near and dear place in my heart for retail as a result of my experience. And, ultimately, as I went into college and racing bicycles became a part of my needed to shelve it for a minute while I focused. I eventually started getting into racing motorcycles, kind of became my passion and what I focused my time and energy on. And so the bicycle actually came back into my life as more of a recovery and training tool for motorcycle racing than anything else. And then over time, as I continued to get more mature and want to be hurt less on powered two-wheel vehicles, the bicycle started to become more and more part of my passion. And I got deeply involved in road racing in Northern California, as well as mountain bike racing in Northern California. And then it's kind of been my passion ever since.
It gets in your bones, right? Yeah, Free Flight's an awesome store, and yeah, man, it does. But how did you find yourself into the bicycle industry? Did that start in like 2000s maybe or
Yeah, great question. So I was working in power sports. So I had kind of chased the power sports career because I was racing motorcycles and off-road vehicles. So it made sense that I want to work in that space. And then as I got more and more passionate about bicycles and my garage went from motorcycles to bikes, I made that transition. My inspiration to want to work in the bike industry grew. And I essentially just put my head down and targeted the industry and said, I'm going to work in this industry some way, somehow. And ultimately, my first role in the bike industry came through an opportunity with Specialized in Northern California.
Oh, wow. So a couple decades now through the COVID, through some transitions and changes, which, I think are kind of good for us to have these like kind of moments where we have to like come back together and then rise back up. But this is, like you said, I think earlier, this is a challenging time. So what are some of the things you're seeing right now? I mean, I'm just diving right into it with you, Mike. Sorry, but I
Yeah,
mean,
let's do it.
yeah, I mean, what are you seeing like on brand side or retailer side, maybe? Because you can give like that perspective, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of significant changes since 2005 when I really got into the space. And, if I were to quantify that, it's like for retailers, an increasing need for them to clearly define what the value is that they bring to their local riding community and the need to create sort of communal experience beyond simply just the retail transaction. Like I've seen that need grow and grow and grow, particularly as consumer purchasing habits have shifted and changed, and there's e-commerce purchasing opportunities. And so retailers that have adapted and been forward thinking and changed their model to be really clear with the community as to here's who we are, here's why we're here, and here's the value that we bring to you. I've seen that transformation really, really work. And I've also seen retailers with that same mindset really work to understand that they needed to professionalize their business. And in many ways, that came from like implementing systems, implementing processes that maybe in decades of the past weren't quite as necessary, but to conduct business in a healthy, profitable way and mitigate risk, those things are foundational today. And so I've kind of watched that transformation happen with the retailer. From a brand standpoint, that one's been interesting as well. All brands, doesn't matter who we're talking about, has had to adapt to new and ever-changing ways that riders want to research, they want to communicate and shop for bicycles. And the world's a different world than it was 20 years ago. And so for brands, trying to allow riders to buy how they want to buy without forcing them to experience something that maybe they don't want to experience, and opening up your aperture to saying, okay, certain riders want to buy this way. How do we do that and accommodate that rider's desire while still supporting the need of the IBD channel and the necessity of the success of the IBD? And that's a tricky thing to figure out. And different brands have tried to figure it out in different ways. And everybody's navigating that with varying degrees of success. So that's been interesting to watch too, as to how bike brands have responded to changing consumer demand.
Yeah, these savvy consumers, right? It is true though. Like the two notes that you mentioned there when it comes to the retailers, since as we're evolving since 2025, this strong sense of community. I was really resonating when you said that because I'm seeing some of our retailers that participate in our Excellence Award. They've got outdoor areas for riders to gather after group rides. They've got e-bike rentals staged outside where people can pick up or drop off 24/7. I mean, they really are creating like a hub for their community to come and not just purchase products, but have an experience, have a memorable moment. And then that systems and profitability, Mike, like I can't agree with you more there. I know you know about our P2 program at the NBDA, but we need retailers to be financially savvy and to understand, their reports and look at their numbers on a continual basis. So I think that has definitely changed because of these consumers, these savvy consumers. They're
Yeah.
demanding more of us. I remember the printed magazines back in the day, Performance and like all the ones, like that's how we did it way back. Now we have this fancy, internet that we can access anything we want. And it makes it challenging for brands, from my history on the supply side, trying to navigate how we get our product in front of this awesome, huge, amazing market, how we also support specialty bicycle retailers. There's like no magic answer, right? It's like something we've been trying to figure out, right?
Yeah, it's a real threading of the needle as a brand to get that right. And it's a balancing act. And what's critical is that brands are thinking about it and they're really leaning into the recognition. And every brand takes a different approach to this, but we believe every brand should lean into the recognition that the IBD is the most critical component of the bike purchase journey. Whether or not a rider buys a bike on the internet or not, they're going to find themselves in an IBD, right? At some point, whether it's to build the bike, protection and apparel, service, need new shoes, whatever the case may be, how that customer lands in the retailer almost doesn't matter as much as how they are embraced and brought into that communal family within that retail shop, and then shown the value that that shop adds. And so it's this yin and yang. And I think that the more the brands and the retailers can come at this shoulder to shoulder and aligned, the better the experience for the rider, the more profitable for the dealer, and the more healthy it is for the brand to then be able to reinvest in new innovations and new platforms and bring out new models and all the things that everybody wants.
Yeah, we just got to figure this out. Mike, so we stopped at Specialized because I got so excited talking to you. So, but you started a job with Specialized in the industry, and then how did you end up at Intense? So just a little bit more there. Or how long have you been at Intense?
Yeah, so I've been at Intense for a couple of years now. I was called by an individual who was on the board of Intense at the time, who was a leader of KTM motorcycles for quite a while. He's also a very passionate mountain bike racer, and his kids race and the whole thing. He's like deeply embedded in the space. And he saw the need to transform the Intense brand from the inside out and to literally take everything that we've done and go, what works, what doesn't work, and what do we need to do differently to be more valuable to the IBD moving forward, regardless of the past. And so let's hang on to the past of innovation and product development and downhill racing and all the cool stuff, but let's really center in on how do we want to build this company up and hit a reset button relative to supporting IBD and just being a more collaborative partner. And so I had been at Specialized. I had gone to Fox Racing and ran their mountain bike division for a time. And ironically was back in the power sports space, leading a team on the East Coast when this call came about. And in all transparency, I said no the first couple of times because I'd worked for a bike brand before. I'd worked for one of the largest bike brands before, and I felt like I'd been there and done that. But the more I understood the opportunity to not only turn a company around and sort of have that be a stamp on my career, on the back end of my career, but the opportunity to play a role in transforming an industry, if even in a small way, like that's pretty fulfilling. And it's not every day that you have that kind of an opportunity in your career. So it was a risk and I took it. Me and my family, we took it, and I couldn't be happier. It's been a wild ride. The timing of it, you could argue, was horrible or it was great, depending on how you want to look at it. And I think that the challenges in the industry today and the challenges that Intense faces today necessitate change. And I'm a change agent. So here we are making changes.
Mike, you're giving me goosebumps over here. I love how you just authentically shared that you said no, and but then this huge opportunity. And I mean, this is memorable work. It's good work. And I mean, I haven't shared this with you, but I've gotten to know your team through the NBDA over the past couple of months working with you and your team. And I've just been floored away by the commitment of Intense to support specialty bicycle retailers. And I've heard some retailers say, oh, Intense, and maybe, not so favorably, but hey, anyone listening, you have to take a look at Intense today because what you and your team are doing to support specialty bicycle retailers, I haven't seen it like anywhere else. And it's absolutely amazing. And I'm really proud that you're part of our organization and really proud to share the work that you're doing. We need more brands to take a look at what you're doing and think like this. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that recognition that one, we've not always been perfect, right? Like we haven't always got it
Sorry
right.
to say that, Mike.
No, it's true. And when we are given the opportunity to sit down with a retailer who maybe has a bad history or has a bad narrative, when you sit down and you talk authentically and you say, hey, look, yeah, we've made some mistakes. We've done some things that in hindsight we would do differently. But let me tell you what we learned from making those mistakes. And let me tell you where we are today and what our strategy is today and why it is what it is. And most importantly, how it impacts you, Mr. Retailer. Most people are willing to listen and work through that. And as a result, move forward. At the end of the day, not everybody can and not everybody will. And we know that. But we think that what we're trying to do, if given the opportunity with a retailer, it's almost a no-brainer. With so little risk, it's almost like, why wouldn't you give this a go? Because it's only going to be healthy for your business.
Yeah. And I mean, we at the MBDA, since I came on board in 2021, we've been working with brands to advocate for the specialty bicycle retailer, and the brands that work with us and they show up to those conversations. Listeners, retailers who are listening, those are the brands that value your business. And Intense is one of those brands. So it means a lot to us, Mike. What I want to do before we talk about all the new things happening is just do a little bit of background. I mean, I'm a mountain bike racer. I know about Intense in the name of the mountain bike world. That's why I'm like kind of pumped. Like I'm stoked for this conversation. Maybe just a little bit about the company's history for our listeners who don't know.
Yeah. So, I mentioned it earlier. Jeff Steber, who's the founder of the brand, founded this company out of his garage. It's a typical U.S. success story. Started a business in his garage in Southern California. And what I would say about Jeff is that he was and is an old school craftsman, an artisan who enjoys taking something that works and making it better. And he was doing that with race sailboats, and he is a musician and he builds his own guitars, and like whatever he can touch, he's going to do in a meaningful way and make it better, make it unique, and make it memorable. And so he was a mountain biker, and he was riding what was available at the time. And he thought to himself, I think I can make a better bike. And so that's what he started to work on. And he would take these bikes that he would not only design, but weld together at his house. And he would take them to the trail and he would let people ride them and he would get feedback. And that process started to generate some sales. And he's like, man, I might be onto something here where I can actually sell these frames that I'm producing here in Southern California. And so, the brand had very quick and early success as being very innovative, particularly in the dual suspension mountain bike space. And so there's, Jeff and Intense set the bar really for downhill mountain bikes early on, especially in the racing, and are credited for an inordinate amount of continued transformation of mountain bikes since that first bike was produced back in '93. And, Jeff was recently admitted to the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, which is just another honor and reflection of the deep passion to provide riders with really exceptional experiences on the trail.
Man, I know Intense for your mountain bikes. And so there's also a gravel bike now, and I think you expanded into e-bikes as well. Is that correct?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. We are a mountain bike brand. We are a dirt brand at heart. And so the gravel bike certainly fits that. And so many of us that are pure mountain bikers also ride gravel, right? And many of us train off the mountain bike to be better on the mountain bike. And many of us are choosing more and more to do that in a gravel environment as opposed to historically perhaps being out on a road. So it made sense for us to enter the gravel space and do it with a carbon fiber gravel bike that comes in at a value price. And that bike's been really successful. And then, of course, the Taser, our e-bike offering, was one of the first, and one of the first to really synergize this two-wheeled motorcycle racing world with mountain bikes, because there is a ton of crossover between folks that ride and race motorcycles with folks that ride and race mountain bikes. And so the Taser was very successful early on at starting to blend those two together and really bring more people into the sport of mountain biking as a result of the Taser e-bike. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun to be a part of, and I'll hold some of the news until maybe later in the discussion, but there's a lot more coming, particularly on the e-bike side from us here in calendar year 2025.
I love that. Yeah, I know the brand that, innovation. You guys always seem to come out with just cutting edge, products, stuff that we had, I wanted to be on. And I do see this crossover with the moto side. I mean, we have a lot of people in my community who ride motos, but then go on an e-bike to get that like training, that off day training, like you were mentioning you were doing. So there is a lot of crossover there. It's kind of exciting. We need more riders in our sport, right?
I think anything we can do as an industry to bring more riders into the sport is a good thing. And that's part of our aim, is to just get more people on mountain bikes. And as a result, we're only going to help foster the success of our IBD channel and subsequently us as a brand. So yeah, we're totally aligned in that regard.
So I want to get into Frame first. Like this is such an exciting program that Intense has brought forward and really helping the retailer not have the burden of stocking so much inventory and so many components, that just tie up cash flow and, don't have quick turns. But I don't want to be the one to spill so I want you to. So let's hear all about the new IBD focused program that really puts the IBD like in the center of the rider's purchasing journey. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun to talk about because it's been a long time horizon to get to this point where we were ready to talk about it. We were inspired to attempt to lean into a solution that we think is desperately needed for bike retailers today, as a result of so many things, right? The mountain bike industry is healthy. There's more riders entering the space. There's more trails being maintained. There's more trails being built. So when you look at the industry as a sport, it's really healthy and growing. When you look at the industry as a business model, there's some problems. And the business model in the industry really hasn't changed in 50 plus years, right? And so you have rider demand and purchasing behaviors changing. You have the retailer having to adapt and evolve and transform how they do business to accommodate a changing rider expectation. But yet, when it comes to the bike brand and the supply chain and that business model and all of the inefficiencies and risks associated with that, that hasn't changed at all. And so we believe that the ultimate result of the lack of change in the business model is over pressurizing small bike retail in the US today.
Yeah.
We think that as a result of inefficiencies and brokenness and financial risk, most of that gets pressurized all the way down to the dealer, and the dealer's having to burden the brunt of all of this challenge, and it makes it really, really hard to get it right. And it makes it really, really hard to be profitable, and cash flow is really tough. And in an environment where there's an inordinate amount of discounting based on post-COVID pandemic inventory and supply chain imbalances, most of that pressure is landing back down to the retailer. And so it was probably already becoming a broken model, but I think post-pandemic, it's really shown a bright light on how broken it is. And I would just like to think that we had to get this broken to be willing to do something about it, right? Because a lot of times you're not willing to change unless you really have to change. And I think we're at the point where as an industry, we really have to change. And so that's the genesis behind what this Frame First program is all about. It was developed and launched to support retailers, specifically retailers. And it's done so by providing them an important distinction to the value that they can provide riders. Essentially, the program is focused on the frame first, and the dealer is able to provide the rider with a consultative sales process around choosing the right intense frame for what that customer wants, the way that they ride, the trails that they ride on, and it starts with that. And I'll just comment on that for a minute. One of the good parts about the industry growing and evolving and having a deep Asian supply chain connection is that spec has become readily available to all brands. And all brands have access to really, really good spec. And so customization used to be a thing of the past where if you really wanted something good, you had to go custom because your choices from a spec standpoint were usually a compromise. Well, that's no longer the case. Everyone has great spec. The problem with that is twofold. One, the cost of all of these supply chain inefficiencies, the inventory commitments that the brand makes to the manufacturer has to be financed, right? All of that is financed through US banks and in some cases, Taiwanese banks and others. There's a cost for that. The inefficiencies of that process and the waste that sometimes develops as rider desire changes, and now that colorway is no longer hot or that spec's no longer relative. So that naturally builds waste into the system. That waste, that cost gets translated down to the rider, and all of these inefficiencies ultimately create a really unhealthy environment. And so by focusing back on the frame as being the differentiator of the bike experience, not the spec, right? Because we've gotten almost homogenized in our shopping experience for bikes. It's like, what does that bike have on it for drivetrain? And what does that bike have on it for drivetrain? And what's the suspension on that bike? And we're comparing spec to spec, and we've lost the art of really understanding and defining what's unique about the frame design and the kinematic purpose of that frame design, and how's that going to translate to the experience on the trail. So this gets us back to that being the core of the purchase decision. And then ultimately, moving forward from that point, the rider, with the dealer's help, gets to pick and choose exactly how they want this bike to be built. So the frame, as the rider comes into the dealer, the frame may be on a frame wall. It may not. They may not have the frame in stock, but the dealer would simply order the frame through Intense once the customer has made the commitment that, yes, I want to buy a bike differently. And then next step, the dealer jumps onto the QBP B2B and orders one of the pre-configured build kits that are designed to 100% ensure fitment with the Intense frame. And then it enables the dealer and the rider to fully customize. And that can occur if the rider wants to pick and choose and replace various pieces and components. And maybe I want 165 cranks rather than 170 cranks. And, I'd rather have this brake system than that brake system. And it affords that so that the rider ultimately gets exactly what they want. The frame comes from Intense to the dealer. The components come from QBP to the dealer, and finally the frame is assembled ultimately by the dealer. And the dealer is then enabled to charge a full custom bike assembly fee back to the customer. And the best part for the customer in this program is because we are more effectively as a brand navigating duty and tariff situations by focusing on frame versus full bike business. We're able to pass that savings on to the dealer and subsequently to the rider. So the best part of the program for the rider is that they're actually able to build a bike up and get it the way that they want it and pay less than the comparably spec'd pre-built bike from the other bike brands, which is crazy because historically, and you know this, you've been around mountain bikes for quite a while, custom was like relegated to the high end, right? It was high end, it was expensive, and it was sort of an elite level of experience and complex, right? Because it was trying to figure out what parts are going to fit this frame, and no matter how good the dealer is, no matter how good the rider is at trying to put this together, they always get something wrong. There's always some waste. There's always a return of something. I got the wrong thing. This eliminates all of that because our product managers and the quality bicycle product category business managers have worked together to produce these kits. And so essentially it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the rider, it's a win for the dealer, and it's a win for the industry.
Wow. I mean, Mike, there's so much here. And I want to tell you, when you were mentioning that mountain bike as a sport is growing, the consumer research that I mentioned earlier, when we asked riders what type of bike they plan to next buy in the next 1 to 2 years, it was a mountain bike. So there's good news there. But this program, it really does hit on so many levels. As you were just speaking about that compatibility, not having to have a tech spend hours, trying to figure out this build, the relationship that you've built with QBP to offer this totally custom opportunity to your rider really takes like the purchase of a bike to a whole new level. It's an art form. It's something, it's one of a kind, which consumer trends, what we're noticing in like retail sector is that people do want customized. They do want something that speaks to them. How did the partnership with QBP come to fruition? Could you just give us a little bit more, or why did that make sense to Intense?
Yeah. So the way that it came about was through relationship and network. And if anything I've experienced in my life, anything that I've done worth doing has come through relationships. And Bill Schumann, who's the vice president of sales at Quality Bicycle Products, he and I worked together at Specialized. So relationship was built. We got to know one another. We got to understand each other's strengths, and it was a lot of fun to work with Bill. He went to QBP. I went on and did other things, and so as we were really ideating on how do we create a solution for the IBD that's on brand for us and produces efficiencies for us, also produces value and a cool premium experience for the rider without the premium price. Like the only way for a small brand like us to do this was to partner with a distributor who their main focus and their core business is distribution of parts and components. And when you look at all the players in that space in the US, obviously Quality Bicycle Products is the market share leader in that regard. So there was on paper, there was some synergies, but it was really just an idea at that point. So Bill and I connected and we started to think through and talk through and whiteboard different ways that this could help the IBD because we needed to get that right. We needed to make sure that it truly was going to be helpful and healthy for the IBD in a transformative way. And it also had to provide value to the rider from a price standpoint, from an experience standpoint, and from a getting what they want standpoint. So countless conversations and calls between the QBP leadership team and myself and my leadership team came together to ultimately create this new way for riders to buy bikes and a new business model for dealers. And so the way that I talk about it and think about it is it's an intense frame first program powered by Quality Bicycle Products. So they are supporting the effort through investment in all of the components necessary, all the systems and infrastructure to support the process being efficient and profitable for the dealers. And, Quality Bicycle Products has built an incredible superhighway to bike dealers across the country. And we just felt like if they could lean into what they do well, their core, and we lean into what we do well, our core, and we let the dealer lean into what they do well, their core business, that's the win-win-win. And so the more we ideated and we had to pitch this in front of our board and in front of the board at Quality Bicycle Products to get all stakeholders agreeing. And once we got that, the real work began, and it's been a robust body of work behind the scenes to get to the point where we are today. And so, yeah, it's really exciting to be able to talk about it and see it starting to come to fruition because it's been so conceptual and planning up to this point.
And Mike, there's no cost for a retailer to join the program, correct? Is that so they become an Intense dealer, or just walk us through a little bit in more granular terms. If I had a listener who was a retailer who wanted to get involved, what would they need to do?
Yep. So you can either participate in Frame First program if you're currently an Intense dealer. That's super easy because we already have a working relationship. If a dealer is not a current Intense dealer, but they have a QBP account, it's very, very simple for them to engage in the program without any sort of inventory commitment or financial risk. So a dealer that, let's say there's a dealer in a town and they've never conducted business with Intense, but a rider hears about this because, trust me, we're leaning into marketing and advertising. So riders are going to be curious and they're going to be asking questions. And a rider could potentially come into a dealer with an Intense Frame First setup sheet and say, I really want to do this. And the dealer could say, I don't know what you're talking about. There's a QR code that the dealer can scan on that setup sheet that will take them right to our dealer landing page for Frame First. And it explains how the program works and explains exactly how they can get involved. And so a dealer can get involved with no commitment to carry one to any number of frames or bikes. And we'll conduct business with that dealer because we ultimately want to be able to provide the rider the opportunity to get this experience at the dealer of their choice. So we have the benefit, sometimes it's a curse. In this case, we think it's a benefit of having a really small dealer network, right? We're way different in terms of the number of dealers we have across the country as compared to many of our competitors. So this allows a rider to take advantage of this cool opportunity really from any dealer that has a quality bicycle product account.
I love that. And we will link to the Frame First dealer webpage in the show notes of this podcast. So there'll be a quick, easy link there for anyone. What about the service side of things? I think you mentioned, and I just want to clarify, for that build cost, the retailer has the opportunity to collect that revenue as an added profit stream. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So as of late, dealers are sort of all over the map in terms of what they charge for a bike build or a bike assembly, and various brands provide bicycles to the dealer in varying degrees of completeness, right? And so one manufacturer might produce a bike in a box to a dealer that's 85% built and it's going to only require an hour's worth of time. Other brands produce the bike in multiple boxes and it's much more of a full custom build type scenario. And so some dealers capture that revenue, some dealers don't. We believe all dealers should because it's a hard cost and it's a necessity in order to make sure that their service department is profitable. But in this case, the assembly, regardless of who a dealer is buying a bicycle from, the predominant assembly for most bikes happens in Asia. And so the Asian assembler is capitalizing on that profitable revenue. The dealer never sees it. They might get a small setup fee, but they're not getting true assembly profit. In this case, the retailer is able to capitalize on all of the assembly margin that's available, and they should. It's an added revenue stream that historically they've not been able to participate in. Because of the unique purchase journey that they're providing the rider, they should feel and stand confident that they can procure a fair and reasonable fee for a full custom bike assembly. And we get asked that question quite a bit, like, should I charge a fee and what should I charge? And the answer to the first question is absolutely, you should charge a fee because there's a hard cost involved. Second question is, what should we charge? We try to leave that to the dealer to determine based on their market, what that dealer brings to the community, what level of service that they have, what their reputation is, and what they're comfortable charging. But absolutely, there's an assembly fee that is profitable to the dealer that should be part of the equation.
Makes sense to me. I mean, this program seems like you've really ticked all the boxes. I mean, QBP is making it really simple. I think they have a microsite on their B2B platform for retailers to just easily select the components and the custom builds. Retailers who are listening would just visit your website, and we'll link that in the show notes. Sign up for the Frame First program. They'll purchase the frame through you through your B2B site, and then the components through QBP, and then it's a dream come true. It's super simple, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, the success of any real program has to be simple, right? It has to be simple to understand and simple to execute and efficient and provide value. And this does that. And it, you know, it will require for some dealers a real self-reflection point to say, okay, I can't think about this as custom used to be, because it's not custom as custom used to be. And the economic climate is not the same as it was when custom was what custom was. And so the real task here is getting retailers that aren't already forward thinking about this topic, because some have come to us and said, we've been waiting for you, this is awesome, let's go.
Yep.
But there's going to be people that struggle because of a previous historical connotation around custom. And I just would really challenge each of them to take a hard look at their business plan, take a hard look at their financials, and based on that and based on where they want to go, be willing to be brave and do something different and step into a realm where they're bringing more value and they're further really insulating their business against all these other areas that a rider can perhaps purchase a bike from. So it takes some boldness on our part. It took boldness on QBP's part. It's going to take some boldness on some of the IBD's part as well. But rest assured, it is a cash flow positive, mitigated risk way to conduct mountain bike business that really doesn't exist today.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like, kudos to you and the team for being forward thinking. We all do need to do that. And I've read that when the things that are the scariest, produce the best results, right? So we got to take those risks, right? Let's talk about what's coming up. You mentioned briefly that you might share something about, I don't know if it was new products or innovations in the pipeline. Anything, that is tied into helping retailers better meet customer needs, or what do you have for me?
Yeah, quite a bit. We have quite a few new innovations that we're going to launch in calendar year 2025. I mean, the most important and the most foundational and the most impactful is the Frame First program, because it serves as the launch pad for everything else that we're going to do, because fundamentally it's changing the way that dealers do business. And then on top of that, we're really excited that we're leaning into new product innovation in calendar year 2025 as well. And we know that as a result of heavy inventory and heavily discounted environment, many brands are choosing to say, you know what, we're going to sit this one out. We have enough inventory that we're not going to bring anything new, or perhaps maybe we're going to take last year's model, give it some new paint, color, and graphics, and bring that model out. We're going to bring out some innovations on the product side that we believe are going to blow people away. So we'll have a new bike that we're going to unveil at Sea Otter. That's going to be a lot of fun to be a part of. I've ridden that bike quite a bit, and I cannot wait till we can tell the world about it. And then we're going to have 2 new e-bike offerings that launch later in the year. And those new e-bike platforms will be visually distinct, kinematically distinct, and very different than anything we've brought to the market and anything in the market today. And so we think we're really pushing the envelope of innovation on those bikes and what they're going to provide to the rider. And riders want that, right? I think you referenced it early on. It's riders want community, they want service, they want new product, they want innovation. And doing that in this current climate is really hard because everyone has too much of the old stuff. But we're trying to be bold and be courageous and just lean in. So 3 brand new bike platforms will launch here in 2025.
That is a breath of fresh air, because I have been waiting for the innovation and the new stuff to come. And I've just been hearing conversation after conversation. We're holding it. We have this stuff ready, but we're not going to launch it. And I'm like, oh man, our riders though, but it is challenging, right? So I'm really excited for you. I took a note when you were mentioning the new bike at Sea Otter. We got to get you to Bentonville so you can come to our summit and the bike fest there and show that off as well. So I'll follow up with you guys about that. there's so much to be thankful for right now, and it really is the brands who are just stepping forward and reimagining how we're doing business, that I think are really going to help us connect all the dots and keep us moving forward as an industry. Anything else that you think about, that I forgot to ask you about, Mike? I mean, it's been an hour already. We can talk and talk and talk. You and I are just like,
No, I love the topic. It's a lot of fun to talk about, and I feel like this has been great, but in many ways, we're just scratching the surface, right? So dealers will have a greater opportunity to listen to the topic, as well as dive into questions at the Retailer Summit coming up in Vegas. Like you mentioned, Bill and I will be there walking retailers through the program and the wins and how to engage and all of that. And then I'll be at the table for the remainder of that day and available to answer questions. And then we also have a booth set up for Cab to West for 2 days. So there will be plenty of time for anyone that has questions or just wants to dive deeper to come around and ask those questions. Yeah, we feel like we're kind of just getting started in terms of this program and getting the word out. We are, as I mentioned, leaning in heavily to some traditional advertising on some of the traditional platforms that are direct to the rider. Because again, it's one thing for us to get the dealers excited and not have enough pull. It's another thing when riders hear about this, get inquisitive, get interested and want to engage, and that only helps accelerate that pull through IBD. And so you'll see a lot more noise from intents in 2025. And one of the benefits of 2025 is so many brands are pulling back their share of voice because it's expensive and it's a tough time. And we're leaning in. So we're going to be punching above our weight class from a share of voice standpoint throughout 2025. So yeah, couldn't be more excited. And maybe just last comment on dealers. I've worked with tons of dealers in my career. I've consulted with IBD. I've worked at IBD. I've been on both sides of the fence. And if dealers will take the time to really analyze their current business financial metrics, and you referenced it with your P2 profitability project, that's core to understanding the health of your business and where you're winning and where you're not winning. And so find waste, find areas of profitability, be willing to be bold in changing their business model to reflect this ever-changing rider purchase preference. And there's no doubt that dealers want to change. They want change. And I mean, you can go on the cycling industry recovery page at any given time, and you're going to read all about it, right? Like everyone's jumping up and down saying somebody has to fix this. We're leaning in to play a role in fixing it. QBP is leaning in to play a role to fix it. But the dealer has to want to change too, and the dealer needs to lean in. It's critical to their future and the healthy success of their business that they self-reflect and be willing to do something different because times are changing. And when you get those three things happening at the same time, we will win as a collective industry, and that's where we are. So we've hit a bottom, I hope. I think we've hit an emotional bottom for sure.
oh yeah.
And that necessitates change. And sometimes it takes hitting a bottom to be willing to change. And I think we're there as an industry.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it more elegantly. So for our listeners who are, they want to become a dealer maybe, or they just want to learn more, ask more. So right on the website, it's a link, dealers, become a dealer. They submit that form. What's the process look like then, Mike? Will they get a call back from someone from your inside team and they'll walk them through the process?
Yeah, we've tried to make the process super simple, streamlined, and efficient. So they can submit everything online, all the documentation needed. It's really easy. There's like 3 things that they do. And then our team absorbs that information. If there's any questions or missing pieces, that's when they would get a call back from someone on my staff. Otherwise, they're going to be engaged with the outside intent selling team. We'll then engage with that retailer to understand who they are, what their business is about, and how they want to move forward and have intents be part of that.
I love it, making it simple. I've got the links to the Frame First Dealer website. I've got the links to the other website. Is there any other contact information you'd like us to share?
I am 100% comfortable with my contact. If anybody ever wants to just chat or understand, you can please place my email as well, and dealers can reach out to me personally, and I will always do my best to respond. It's not as timely as I always want it to be because I get tied up in all the things that we get tied up doing, but I am fully open and transparent to have these conversations with anyone.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll put your email in the show notes. And I have to say, all your emails that I get from you, it always seems like you're just in such a great mood and your energy is high. And like, it's always just a breath of fresh air to read your emails. I'm like, I'm going wherever Mike's going today because he's excited. Thank you for that. I like the optimism and the energy. I think that that's really good for our industry right now. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, that comes from a place of one, I've probably ridden my bike by the time I've responded to you, right? And that helps us all be better. That's so fundamental to our mindset. And two, it's a choice. We all have it, and the industry has it right now. The industry has a choice to choose to fix it or look at all the problems. And I think a much more solutions-based, optimistic mindset is conducive to finding solutions and transformation than the other. So it's purposeful.
Awesome. Mike, thank you for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Always good to chat.
Thank you for tuning into Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please like, subscribe, or leave us a review. Sharing this podcast with your friends helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring you the best content. Remember, we host 2 shows per week with ever-changing guests and fresh content to keep you both informed and inspired. The National Bicycle Dealer Association is committed to providing valuable events, webinars, and opportunities for industry education and connection. Stay up to date by visiting nbda.com to see our event calendar. Special thanks to Francis Abbott for the promotional graphics for today's episode. If you're interested in advertising on Bicycle Retail Radio or have a guest suggestion, visit nbda.com to learn more. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Bicycle Retail Radio.